everything feels expensive. So why are people still buying Starbucks, Sephora, dupes, DoorDash, and little treats? There's a very strange thing that happens when people feel financially squeezed. Someone will stand in Walmart comparing the unit price of cereal, eggs, paper towels, coffee pods, pasta sauce, and laundry detergent like they are trying to solve a minor federal budget crisis. They will check the rollback price, the Costco price, the Target Circle offer, the Kroger digital coupon, the Amazon subscribe and save price, and the why is this smaller than it used to be price. And then, sometimes on the very same day, they will buy a Starbucks, a Sephora mini, a DoorDash order, a new Stanley-style cup, a dupe perfume, a better protein snack, or a little treat from Target that somehow entered the cart under its own legal authority. From the outside, that can look irrational. It can look like people are saying everything is too expensive and then behaving as if they are fine. But when I started looking at the numbers, the story got much more interesting because consumers did not simply stop spending. They started trading down in some places, trading up in others, hunting for dupes, testing store brands, delaying big purchases, protecting tiny pleasures, and asking a question that is much more revealing than, is this cheap? The tidy version of this story is very simple. Inflation went up, grocery prices got expensive, consumers became price sensitive, and brands had to discount. That is the version that fits nicely in a business deck because it gives everyone a clean problem and a clean answer. People have less room in the budget, so make things cheaper. Lovely. Simple. Slightly panic-inducing if you own the margin, but simple. Except the reality of consumer behavior after inflation is not that tidy. It is not just people got poorer, so they bought less. It is more like people lost trust in the old price of things. They stopped believing the shelf was telling them the whole truth. They started noticing which packs had shrunk, which brands were using inflation as a cover, which store brands were actually just as good, and which purchases still made them feel like a normal functioning person in an economy where a grocery receipt can now have the emotional atmosphere of a parking ticket. If you start with the official numbers, you can see why this happened. The USDA says food prices increased by 9.9% in 2022, faster than in any year since 1979. Food at home prices, meaning grocery store and supermarket food, rose by 11.4% in 2022, then another 5.0% in 2023. And even when inflation cooled, the price level did not magically walk itself back to 2019 and apologize. By May 2026, the USDA's food price outlook still showed food prices 3.1% higher than a year earlier, grocery prices 2.7% higher, and food away from home prices 3.5% higher. That is the first important clue. Inflation slowing is not the same thing as life feeling affordable again. If a box of cereal went from $4 to $6, and then next year it only goes from $6 to $6.15, the official story is inflation is cooling. The human story is I am still paying $6.15 for cereal. Those two stories can both be true, but they feel completely different. This is where a lot of brands, economists, and frankly, some politicians lose people. They talk about the rate of change, while consumers are living with the accumulated change. The shopper is not standing in the grocery aisle thinking, well, technically, the year-over-year inflation rate has moderated. They are thinking, why is this bag of chips mostly air? Why is beef expensive again? And why do I feel like I need a spreadsheet to buy breakfast? So, at first, I assumed the answer would be obvious. If food and household basics are expensive, surely people just cut back everywhere. But that is not what the evidence shows. What happened was stranger. Consumers became more selective, more value-conscious, more comparison-driven, more open to alternatives, and much more likely to ask one question before buying almost anything. Will I be glad I spent money on this? Not, is it cheap? Not even, can I technically afford it? Because can I afford it is a messy question now. It might mean cash. It might mean credit card. It might mean buy now, pay later. It might mean I can pay for it, but I will feel slightly haunted by it later. The better question is, will this feel worth it after the payment clears? There is a big difference here. Cheap and worth it are not the same thing. A cheap thing can feel expensive if it breaks, tastes awful, disappoints you, wastes your time, or sits in the garage like evidence of a short-lived personality phase. An expensive thing can feel reasonable if it lasts, solves a real problem, protects your identity, or gives you a little bit of relief in a life that has become groceries, rent, gas, insurance, medical bills, and being asked to tip on a screen while 3 people stare at you. This is why calling consumers price-sensitive is true but incomplete. People are not sensitive to price in a vacuum. They are sensitive to price when the value is unclear, when trust is low, when the product feels replaceable, or when the brand seems to be quietly giving them less while asking for the same money. Shrinkflation became such a powerful cultural word because it named a feeling people already had. The feeling was, I am being asked to pay more, receive less, and not mention it at the checkout. This is the moment when shopping habits change. Before inflation, a lot of buying was automatic. You buy the brand you grew up with. You buy the detergent your mom used. You buy the cereal the kids like. You buy the same paper towels, the same coffee creamer, the same snacks for the game, because life is busy and there is only so much energy available for comparing oat milk. But when money gets tighter and prices keep changing, autopilot breaks. Once autopilot breaks, brands are suddenly being reevaluated. Every grocery trip becomes a small audit. Every subscription renewal becomes a little trial. Every impulse purchase has to walk into the courtroom and defend itself. That is one of the biggest shifts in consumer behavior since the inflation shock. It did not just reduce demand, it interrupted habits. And habits are where a lot of brands quietly make their money. You can see this most clearly in the rise of store brands and private label brands. The old image of private label was not exactly glamorous. Store brand used to mean fine, I suppose. It was the bargain option, the thing you bought if you had to, and sometimes the packaging looked like it had been designed during a fire drill. But that has changed. The stigma of the store brand is dying, if it is not already dead. Great Value, Kirkland, Good & Gather, Trader Joe's, Aldi, Kroger, Amazon, Target, Costco. Store brands are not just cheaper copies now. They are a whole alternative trust system. Axios reported that private label sales reached $330 billion in 2025, about a quarter of the market, according to Circana. Walmart was refreshing Great Value across nearly 10,000 food and consumable products. That is not a tiny packaging update. That is one of the biggest retailers in the world saying the store brand is no longer hiding on the bottom shelf. It is central to the strategy. And this is the bit that matters emotionally. The shift is not only about saving money, it is about discovering that the cheaper thing might be good enough, or sometimes genuinely good. That discovery is dangerous for legacy brands because once a customer learns the old premium was not really doing much, the belief breaks. If you switch from a national brand to a store brand pasta sauce and nobody in the house notices, the old brand has not just lost a sale, it has lost a story. The story was, this costs more because it is better. Once that story fails, a coupon might get you back for a week, but the spell has been damaged. And this is not only happening in groceries. It is happening in beauty, fashion, wellness, home goods, and even status products. The dupe economy is basically the private label logic turned into a culture. A dupe says, I can get the look, the scent, the aesthetic, the function, or the status signal without paying the full brand tax. The Washington Post reported that in June 2025, fragrance dupe brands were up 103% from the same period the year before, while cosmetic dupe sales rose almost 10%. This is where the story gets very interesting because trading down is not always socially embarrassing anymore. In some circles, it has become a flex. Finding the dupe, the Costco version, the Aldi version, the Target version, the Amazon version, the same factory version, that can feel like winning. It makes the consumer feel clever. It says, I did not get tricked. I beat the system. That emotional shift is huge. People want to save money, but they also want to feel competent in an economy that keeps making them feel slightly stupid. They want to feel like they found the hack, the workaround, the better deal, the version nobody told them about. This is why comparison behavior became so powerful. It is not just rational, it is soothing. It gives people the feeling that they are doing something. But there is a darker side to this. Because the need to feel competent often comes from lost slack. Slack is the money that lets you make a mistake. Slack is the gap between that was annoying and that has ruined the month. Slack is the reason a car repair is inconvenient instead of catastrophic, or a dentist bill is irritating instead of existential. A Federal Reserve survey found that 37% of people would not cover a surprise $400 expense with cash, savings, or a credit card they could pay off right away. That does not mean every one of those households is in crisis every day, but it does mean a lot of people are living without much room to be wrong. When people lose slack, they do not necessarily stop spending. They start editing. They edit categories, brands, habits, quantities, timing, and versions of themselves. They buy the great value basics but keep the coffee they actually like. They cancel one streaming service and keep another. They skip the restaurant but buy the premium frozen meal. They delay the appliance but get the better phone case. They buy the dupe perfume instead of the designer one, but still want to smell like the version of themselves who has not been completely defeated by auto insurance. Let me make this less abstract. Imagine someone called Maya. She is a composite, not a case study, but she represents the kind of consumer sitting underneath a lot of these numbers. She has a job. She pays her bills. From the outside, she looks fine. But rent is higher than it used to be. Groceries are higher. Car insurance has become spiritually offensive, and every small bill now seems to arrive with confidence. Maya still buys coffee out sometimes, but not randomly. She chooses it on the day she has to drive across town for work because it makes the day feel less bleak. She stops ordering lunch as often because lunch now feels like a stupid way to lose $20. She switches to store-brand staples. She buys Costco paper towels in bulk because the unit price feels like adult competence. She waits for Target Circle offers. She puts things in her Amazon cart and lets them sit there until she can tell whether she actually wants them or was just emotionally unsupervised at 11:40 p.m. Then, after all of that, she buys a Sephora mini or a dupe fragrance or a nicer protein snack. Not because she has forgotten inflation exists, but because the purchase is small enough to be safe and symbolic enough to matter. The household basics are about survival and competence. The little treat is morale. That is the consumer behavior shift in miniature. This process creates winners and losers in ways that look contradictory from the outside. Walmart and Costco can win because they help people feel smart and in control. Aldi and Trader Joe's can win because value does not feel like punishment there. Private label can win because it reduces the brand tax. Dupe brands can win because they let people preserve the look or feeling for less. Higher trust brands can still win because they make the purchase feel safer. The danger zone is the brand that is neither the cheapest nor the most meaningful. That middle is brutal. If you are charging more, but the customer cannot explain why, you are exposed. That explanation does not have to be grand. It might be durability, ingredients, taste, convenience, customer service, design, ethical sourcing, identity, or the feeling of being looked after. But it cannot be nothing. During easier times, a brand can survive on habit and packaging. During squeeze times, vagueness becomes expensive. This is also why big-ticket categories feel so different from little luxuries. Bank of America analysts found consumers cautious about big-ticket durables like appliances, electronics, and home improvement, while spending on restaurants, airlines, and hotels was steadier. That is not because everyone suddenly became financially irrational. It is because the emotional math is different. A dishwasher, sofa, or renovation is a big risk. A trip, a dinner, a concert, or a small beauty purchase may feel like one of the few ways life still gives something back. This is one of the most important distinctions for brands. People may delay the large purchase and still protect the small pleasure. They may not buy the couch, but they might buy the throw pillows. They may not take the big vacation, but they might take a cheaper weekend trip. They may not buy the luxury perfume, but they might buy the dupe. They may not eat at the nice restaurant, but they might buy the better grocery store meal. They are not being inconsistent. They are reallocating emotion. Sometimes your competitor is not another brand in your category. Sometimes your competitor is the bigger version of the same emotional job. The premium frozen pizza is competing with delivery. The at-home coffee setup is competing with Starbucks. The drugstore skincare dupe is competing with Sephora. Costco rotisserie chicken is competing with the feeling of having dinner handled. A Target run is competing with therapy, which is unfair to Target but also not entirely untrue. This is why value is a much bigger word than cheap. Value is confidence in the exchange. It is the feeling that what you gave up was worth what you got back. Money, time, effort, risk, hope, identity, convenience, status, and relief. A low price can still feel like bad value if the product breaks, tastes bad, creates admin, or makes you feel conned. A higher price can feel reasonable if the thing works, lasts, saves time, or protects something emotionally important. And this is where trust becomes the real battleground. When people have less room for error, disappointment becomes expensive. A bad restaurant meal is not just a bad meal. It is the one night out you budgeted for, wasted. A cheap appliance that breaks is not just an annoyance. It is a false economy. A subscription you forgot to cancel is not just clutter. It is a monthly leak. A beauty product that does nothing is not just a failed product. It is proof you were seduced by a promise you should have questioned. So, people look for evidence. They read reviews, check Reddit, search TikTok, watch comparison videos, ask group chats, scan return policies, and read one-star reviews with the intensity of someone investigating a minor financial crime. They want to see the pan after 6 months, the leggings after 20 washes, the skincare on normal skin, the meal kit cooked by an actual tired person, and the luggage after an airline has done whatever mysterious violence airlines do to luggage. Evidence does not have to be boring. It just has to reduce perceived risk. Show the size, show the ingredients, show the before and after, show the 6-month update, show the real customer use, show the return policy without making people need a legal education, show why this is worth paying for, because if you do not explain the premium, the customer will go looking for the dupe. Now imagine the business on the other side of this. Let's say it is a small coffee brand. It sells nice beans, not the cheapest bag in the grocery aisle, not the fanciest bean that requires the customer to develop a personality around water temperature, but genuinely good coffee. Before inflation, treat yourself might have been enough. Now the brand has to work harder. It has to show that the bag replaces several cafe coffees. It has to show how many cups it makes. It has to explain freshness, taste, subscription flexibility, and why this is not another little luxury that will become guilt. It might say, this is the coffee for the morning you want to feel like you have your life together before your inbox ruins the illusion. That is specific. That sounds like a person. Premium coffee for modern lifestyles. Sounds like it escaped from a conference room. The same is true for bigger retailers. Walmart refreshing great value is not just packaging, it is a trust move. Costco protecting Kirkland is not just private label, it is identity. Target's beauty and food brands are not just cheaper shelves, they are little ecosystems of controlled indulgence. Trader Joe's does not feel like trading down even when it is cheaper, because the experience wraps value in discovery. Aldi makes savings feel efficient rather than shameful. The winners understand that value has to feel good, not just be mathematically correct. That is the lesson a lot of brands miss when they jump straight to discounting. Discounting can work. If the barrier is affordability, a lower price helps. But if the barrier is uncertainty, proof helps. If the barrier is trust, transparency helps. If the barrier is guilt, positioning helps. If the barrier is relevance, clarity helps. If the barrier is cash flow, timing helps. Though everyone needs to be careful, because making debt feel cute is not exactly a moral triumph. Lazy discounting trains customers to wait. It teaches them that urgency is theater. If everything is always 30% off, then 30% off is the price. If every sale ends at midnight and then rises from the dead the next morning, the customer learns something about you. They learn not to believe you. And in a high-pressure economy, trust is not a soft metric. It is the thing that decides whether the customer feels safe buying. So, if I had to pull the marketing lesson out of this without turning it into a framework with too many arrows, it would be this. Diagnose before you discount. If you misread anxiety as pure price resistance, you solve the wrong problem. A customer might be able to pay but not feel safe buying. They might want the product but not trust the promise. They might like the brand but not understand the difference. They might be ready but waiting for permission. They might be comparing you with a totally different emotional alternative. The affordability crisis did not create a new species of consumer. It revealed the consumer more clearly. It showed that people are always balancing money, identity, fear, pleasure, status, convenience, guilt, hope, and the desire to feel like they are doing okay. When times are good, that balancing act is softer. There is more room for mistakes, impulse, vague brands, and purchases that do not have to justify themselves too hard. When times are hard, the balancing act becomes visible. People still want things. They still want treats, beauty, ease, comfort, novelty, convenience, and the little symbolic purchases that make life feel less like a bill payment app. But they want those things to justify themselves. They want the product to earn the money, the brand to earn the trust, and the emotion to earn its place. That is why the Starbucks, the dupe perfume, the store brand groceries, the Costco membership, the better frozen meal, the Target beauty aisle, and the delayed sofa all make more sense than they first appear to. They are not evidence that people are lying about being squeezed. They are evidence that people are trying to stay human while being squeezed. They are trying to preserve control, identity, comfort, status, and joy in an economy that keeps asking them to be rational. And that is a slightly cruel ask, because people are not rational or irrational. They are human. They cut back where they can so they can still feel like themselves somewhere else. So when a customer does not buy, it might not mean they do not want it. It might mean they cannot justify it. When they choose the store brand, it might not mean they are cheap. It might mean your premium was unclear. When they buy the dupe, it might not mean they have stopped caring about status. It might mean status itself has become more value conscious. And when they buy a small luxury, it might not mean they are irresponsible. It might mean that small luxury is doing emotional work that the rest of their life cannot do right now. In an affordability crisis, people do not stop buying emotionally. They become much more demanding about which emotions are worth paying for. The brands that understand that will not just shout louder about price. They will become clearer, more useful, more honest, more specific, and more respectful of the person standing in a Walmart aisle, Target aisle, Costco aisle, Kroger aisle, CVS aisle, Aldi aisle, or supermarket aisle, doing the math, weighing the feeling, and asking the question sitting underneath so many purchases now. Will I be glad I bought this? If a brand can answer that properly, with proof and empathy and a product that actually holds up, people may still choose it even when everything feels expensive. Not because they have stopped caring about money, but because they care very deeply about what their money is allowed to mean. Remember to like and subscribe for more from the Contrarian Mother.